I'm Kennedy Mitchum, and this is a lesson on racism.
So, Kennedy, can you tell me what is your earliest memory of being creative?
My earliest memory of being creative, wow, that's hard. I think honestly not that early. I just began writing a lot, like journaling everything that I was feeling or that I was going through and kind of channeling it into my work. So like in high school, whenever I got the chance to, write an essay, write a persuasive essay, I would make a point to kind of put my own experiences in
Mm-hmm.
that. Like no matter what the topic was, we could just be talking about, war, and then somehow I would mix in, the experiences that I have as,
Yes.
a Black woman. So I think that's one thing.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think that's what we need is a connection, a personal connection to the history. I remember a lot of times certain things that we are taught, obviously, because there's so many people left out of stories. I was like, why are we learning this? This is boring. How does this connect to me?
Yes, same. And even in college, like I had a conversation just like that when we were discussing the Civil War and when we were talking about, what all that happened. And then I'm like, oh, well, there were Black soldiers there. Like I never even knew that. And I'm just like, but I have to research that myself. Like I'm like, dang, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know that until I started reading and educating myself on that. Although I'm in a class that this is what it's supposed to be about, but why are we not learning about what they went through, trying to find that connection. And then when I asked the professor, she's like, well, that's not what this class is about. And I'm like, how is that, like, how is this not what this class is about? Like, it doesn't make sense. And when I put that in my paper, she's like, I'm like, a lot of people don't discuss this. I mean, I've never discussed it. And then she put in it like a little note that made me so upset. And I had to go right back to her because she was like, actually, this has been discussed by historians for years now. And I'm like, you're a historian. Why are we not discussing it then?
Mm-hmm.
And then she goes back to the same thing. That's not what this class is about. So that's a big thing. Like that connection is so important, and we're not even understanding what our people are doing and what they have contributed to, our history. It's so disappointing.
I think too with teachers, the whole point of being an educator is to listen to questions that people have and to, if you don't have the answer, encourage the discussion and help them to find the answer. So you went off and researched it on your own, but she could have, if she knew that historians discussed it, why not point you to those resources? Why not offer that, right? That's a whole other
Yes.
topic of discussion. So tell me a little bit about what happened. Basically, you, as we all know, George Floyd was brutally murdered by the police. It's captured on video. It becomes a global conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't live far from where it all went down. And tell me what was happening for you there.
It's a lot. I feel like I have a lot of white counterparts, not a lot of white friends. I just know a lot of white people on my social media.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up and going to a lot of private white institutions from fourth grade on up.
And yet, how
So,
far away are you from Ferguson? Not very far at all.
like 10 minutes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I live in Florissant. So
Mm-hmm.
that's like a
Close.
little drive. Very close. I've been over there to protest recently. There's been a lot. They've been doing a lot in Florissant and in Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, just knowing the current climate, just knowing and understanding what I know, not only from like blanket, what seems blanket to me, but obviously other people might not see it as blanket, like people being killed because of the color of their skin, and then combined with my own personal experiences, as a Black woman, being stereotyped, being looked over, and things of that nature that hurt me just as much as it, hurt those overt. those overt ways that people say the N word, blah 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 blah. But to me, it's that doubt. It's that doubting me because I'm a Black woman, putting those labels on me because I'm a Black woman that really hurt me to my core a lot, like in my mental health in college. So it's kind of like the fact that people aren't understanding that, you know, a lot of these systems, whether it's in the healthcare, whether it's in education and things like that, it's continue to perpetuate of racism. Like they didn't understand that connection. It's not just individual bias. It's not just disliking someone because of the color of their skin. It's a lot deeper than that. It's a lot of
so let's break it down, because I know the story, but my listeners won't know the story. So what's happening is this is happening in Ferguson. You're like having the conversation with people. They're saying, well, I'm not racist. Look it up in the dictionary.
Right.
And you're saying racism in the dictionary is not properly defined. Is that right? Yeah. So tell me about the discussion that prompted you. And then what you do is you write to Webster and you ask them to change the definition. So tell me what was the incident that happened that sparked all of this?
Yeah, so basically I just posted on my social media. I like shared a post and it just said something about, you know, microaggressions and how they hurt and how this is a different way of, you know, hurting people of color. So really look out, and how it was racist. And I shared it on my Facebook, and then people were commenting saying like how, like questioning like, how is that racism? Like, I'm confused. And so of course I'm like, okay, I'm going to explain how this is racist. I'm going to, you know, let you know that, you know, you wouldn't have been making these comments if I was a white female or, you know, a white man. So when I do that, they go to the definition of racism, and they're like, you know, racism, just because they said that, that doesn't necessarily make them racist. Like that doesn't make them a bigot because they, you know, believe that you don't know if they believe that you're worse off or that you're a certain way. I'm like, and I was just like, oh my goodness, like I can't do it anymore. Like I've had these same like different conversations over and over again. And I just realized that definition was the problem at that point. Like people continue to go there to kind of justify ignorant behavior and kind of to stay stagnant.
Yes, and so let me read the definition, because it's kind of ridiculous, but whatever. So and to keep in mind for people listening that dictionary definitions traditionally have been short because they were print. So they had to fit so many words into a printed edition. But now that's no longer the case because so many of the dictionaries are online. So here's how Merriam-Webster first definition of racism reads: a belief that race is the primary determinant of human traits and capabilities, and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. What does that even mean? Right. But I mean, it doesn't, and I get it, but it doesn't even get the emotionality. It doesn't get any of those other things included in there. And I think what's interesting too, is that so much of science now, you know, does not include race because it's not ancestry. And ancestry, which is geography, is more appropriate in terms of science because the race reinforces historical biases. So let's talk about what you wanted the definition to include, and then how you asked.
So I wanted it to include a lot of like systemic oppression and a lot of the systemic factors that are missing from the definition. Like it's very passive, and it doesn't show how active racism is in today's society.
I love that.
So I was like, yeah, I basically emailed them and said, you know, at this point, you guys are misinforming the masses by using this definition. People continue to go to the dictionary for a more nuanced way of understanding a word. And racism is a word that you should have, you know, defined well. Like I just basically said that. And they emailed me back. An editor reached out. They emailed me and basically said, no, I'm not gonna, a very long paragraph, but say like, no, we're not changing it. And, I was just like, I was disappointed, but I wasn't surprised. I mean, I'm used to a lot of systems of power, not, caring really about what minorities saying and things of that nature. So but I kept writing back. I was just like, okay, so basically you're just saying that you're not going to change it, like all of that for what? And they said, I mean, they ended the sentence with, yeah, I'm sorry, but like the whole paragraph they sent again, well, yeah, I'm sorry, I know this is not what you wanted to hear, but we focus on the majority and the way they use it in literature, and that's how it's been used. They said that they do understand that, it has
Understanding
been.
that the majority has been written not by people of color. I mean, how ignorant is that? Is the response?
No, yeah, literally, and
Oh my
that's
God!
exactly what I
Like,
responded.
oh my
I was
God!
like, Lord. I was like, wow, like time after time, it's the same thing. So I said exactly what you just said in response to that. I was like, I mean, how is diversity and inclusion at your forefront if you're not looking at literature that is written by people of color? Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. I'm like, and they're the ones who are experiencing racism in the way that I'm described. So
Yeah.
like, what's going on? And then that's when their tune started to change, and they were like, yeah, like, we understand. And they said they would talk to the board about it, and then they got back to me again and said that they did decide to change it to include the systemic elements. And as well, because I questioned them earlier on about, the other definitions that weren't even a thing. Like, you look up systemic oppression and there's nothing in Merriam-Webster dictionary and other things like it. And like
Is
anti-black,
is microaggression in there now?
I don't know.
Huh.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
because
I don't
that
think I
should be in
looked that
there.
up.
But yeah, that's let's I'm gonna put that on our list. But that's a good one too. But
No,
yeah, go
seriously.
ahead. Yep.
So they just vowed to, look. They said it was going to take a couple months because they are trying to collect literature from minorities and make sure, that they're understanding it from that point of view. And they just, thanked me for being persistent, because they said, like, if I hadn't reached out, they would not have changed it, or it would have remained the same. So I'm
And
glad that
how
they
long?
actually did decide to do something.
Yeah, it's funny because as it's reported, it makes it
Mm-hmm.
seem like, oh, you reached out and you suggested it and they said sure. But that's not what
Mm-hmm.
happened, is you had to
Yeah,
actually
no.
keep going back and forth and explaining. So how long did it take you to convince them?
I think it was only like a week and a half, though. Like a week and
Okay,
a half.
that's not terrible,
Mm-hmm.
but still
Right.
it
Yeah.
took persistence. So can you
Yeah.
talk about how old are you?
I'm 22. Just graduated college.
Congratulations. So
Thank you.
what gave you the courage to reach out, and what gave you the persistence to continue?
I think that I'm just sick and tired of not being heard. Like, my college, it was a lot of that. Like, no matter what would happen, and if they did acknowledge it, it was just like, well, sorry, but we're not going to do anything about it. Like, I'm sick of that. I'm sick of the performative. I'm sick of, acting like you're for diversity and inclusion, but not taking care of your people, your students of color, not caring, not doing anything if they have to drop out because they can't afford it. But you brought them here. It's like, I'm just so used to that, and I'm sick and tired of it. I'm like, I'm less about, especially with everything going on, we don't need words, we need actions. I need to see how you are actually for people of color at this point in time. Like, I'm done with all of the, whatever you want to say with the black square on Instagram. Like, it's just not enough. So that's really why I kept pushing, because I just know how important it is. Like, words matter, language matters, like the words that we're using, like, to describe something. Like, so a big thing like racism, especially when, you have people all, like, really of all different colors, trying to look and read more about their history and look and understand better. And then you're misinforming people. Like, no. So I think that's really why I kept fighting, because I'm so used to having to fight for the bare minimum to change, or bare minimum to happen. So I was like, yeah, I'm gonna keep pushing. I mean, the least a few emails, that's the least it'll cost me. So, you know. Ooh, I think
I'm muted
there
there.
we go.
So tell me, have you received any backlash? Have you received any negative attention from the visibility because you're just a regular woman out there doing your own thing, graduating from school in life? Sounds like a pretty private life. And this is a pretty public moment during a very big historical moment.
Yeah.
So what kind of response have you received? And then if there's been any, let's start there. What kind of response have you received?
It's really been all like half and half. Like a lot of people have been, reaching out and just like thanking me for, making this change, because of course I'm already aware that I've had these same conversations about racism with a lot of people of color, a lot of students of color. Like a lot of people understand this, but the people who need to understand it the most were the people who were not understanding it and not understanding how important it is to know what it means and how it can affect people who don't look like you. So I really like it's been a lot of support and like thanking you for doing this in a different creative way and trying to have your voice be heard in this way. And then it's another type of people, they keep bringing up some Orwellian's 1984 thing. Do you know what that is?
Yeah, I do. I do know. So this is the negative people?
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting that they would be. And what are they saying?
They're saying like, oh, he said that this would happen. They're going to try to rewrite and change definitions. They're going to try to change history and all of this. Blah, 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 blah.
Yes, and that's what we're here for. I do believe that's what we're here for. We're here. I mean, you don't come into a culture is a container, and it needs to change based on the people who are in the container with you, right? Or it's like a dress. Like it's like we're all putting on the same dress. We have to let it out a little bit if we've gained some weight, right? Like we have a different way to describe things. That's so interesting, the Orwell reference. So, and are they coming at you in a negative? Have there been any threats or anything scary?
Oh yeah, I mean they're whatever threatening me or whatever, but it's not like anything. Like I mean I don't like it, but it's just like you dumb cursing me out and things of that nature. I mean they did,
and is that in the comments? Is that in the comments places?
Oh yeah, it's in the comments. It's in they're messaging me a lot on Facebook mostly. A couple DMs on Twitter. I'm kind of grateful that a lot of people haven't like been tagging me in these posts, so it's a little harder for them to find me, which I'm glad about. But I mean, the negative, they're basically saying the same thing. Either the stuff about what I mentioned earlier, or they're just saying that I'm changing things to try to fit my own narrative, which is just which is just not true. I mean,
no, it's just stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So. And also let's even play angel's advocate and say that you are changing it to fit your narrative. Why is your narrative less valuable than somebody else's narrative? You're here by virtue of your creator, right? Your narrative deserves to be part of the conversation too. And I'm 100% on board with you that words matter. And I loved this story obviously as a writer, and I loved it because as a change maker, you don't make change unless you ask questions, and questions make some people uncomfortable.
Yes.
So would you I mean, based on that negativity, would you have done this again no matter what, like knowing? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean you can't be there can't be change without being radical and things like that. So it's kind of like whatever, you can say what you want, but people, I'm just saying what history has said. I'm literally just showing what a lot of people already understand, a lot of scholars, a lot of stuff that data backs up. It's not just something that I'm just pulling out of thin air, So it's like if it wasn't now, I hope that somebody else would have did the same thing years from now or something like that, because it's something that needed to be done.
What do you want to do
I want to,
in terms of your work and career? I'm curious.
I know, I really want to like create a platform where I can continue to, advocate and educate, because I feel like that's a huge disconnect. Like, people just don't know. I feel like it's not only education. I mean, we've been raised to think a certain way, to act a certain way. And like you said earlier, we don't question it. Like, that's one thing I've learned. It's so important to, question everything. We've been listening to narratives that aren't, in our favor for so long, whether it's in the media or whether it's, in freaking the history books or, in the dictionary. It's so much. So I definitely want to create a way to continue. That's what I'm thinking about. To continue to, advocate and educate. I mean, recently I'm just talking to my mayor and my police chief about these important topics, because this bias training, I don't think, how is this working if you don't even understand what systemic racism is, So it's just not, a lot of stuff is just not adding up, and there's a lot of different facets that need to be, addressed. Education, healthcare, all that stuff. But I'm mostly focused on education and just making sure people are aware and understand the different levels and a lot of the things that is just fake news nowadays, but they take it, as the truth. So that's the main thing.
Does your family support you in this work?
Oh yeah, of course. They're like posting on Facebook, oh yeah, that's my daughter. I'm so excited. They really support us.
They don't mind the visibility for you then?
Right. No.
Yeah. So what would you say to someone who has asked a question like you and found an answer that doesn't fit the narrative of what we're taught and wants to make change but is too afraid? What would you say to them?
Keep pushing, and educate yourself. The thing that I had to do, that's why it took me a longer time to, start questioning this stuff, because it's just so programmed, just going with the status quo. Like, I definitely understand, and I've definitely been there, but you just reach out and find those resources for yourself, so this is what is right. It's not just all that backlash, all that person trying to push against you. It's because at the end of the day, they're comfortable in their spot, they're comfortable the way they are right now, but you aren't, and that's not okay. So if you're uncomfortable, you shouldn't be uncomfortable. So keep pushing, keep doing, find different routes. It's a lot of different ways in order to bring about the change that you need. If one isn't working, find another one. I know it's hard, but it's definitely, like me arguing back and forth with the trolls, it wasn't working, so I went to a different route. And it's try to get to the root of the problem. Like, you understand, if you understand and you see what's happening, don't doubt yourself. It's not just educate yourself more, because the stuff that we've been learning is not a lot in our favor. So just question everything. It's the biggest thing. Question everything, educate yourself, and keep pushing, because at the end of the day, being uncomfortable is not okay. Just because you're a person of color or whoever you are, you deserve to feel right in your own skin. So yes,
I think it's interesting, like, just the whole idea of being willing to, because when you also, the fact that you're thinking it, and I know this as a writer a lot of the times, the fact that you're thinking it means somebody else is thinking it too.
Yeah.
Even though they haven't voiced it, even though they might not be able to find the words for it. And a lot of the times you are able to give people words. So I'm so grateful to you, because when I read the story, I realized, wait a second, I don't actually even look to the dictionary for that definition, because I know what it is.
Exactly.
And then when I went there and looked at it, I was like, well, that's a stupid definition. Like, that's really not helpful at all. Doesn't encapsulate any of the emotionality, which is what is so complex with so many of these, with some words, right? Who are they written by? And I think it's interesting that they have to go to, right? I think it's interesting they have to go to they're going to the board, which is fine. I get it. They want their proof, but they're going to the board to do a review of Black literature. Well, let's hope, or literature by people of color, because it's not just Black people that experience racism. And let's hope that they actually, they include a wide, like, from the African diaspora, the Chinese diaspora, from the South, like, let's hope that they include so many different people as they make this definition, as they evolve it. But I mean, I love this story, and I'm so grateful to you. So let me ask you this question.
Wait 1 second. My
yes.
Turned down.
Yes. No worries.
I need to plug this up.
Yeah.
Okay, continue.
Yes, yay. That's great. So if I asked you to complete this sentence, my wish for every other woman is?
Advocacy.
What about advocacy?
I think that, like, a lot of women just need support. I mean, in a lot of different realms.
You totally just cut out. So maybe let's do it again as a response, because you just cut out. We'll take advantage. But to say, my wish for every other woman is that they get advocacy, and then tell me why.
Okay, sounds good. All right, ready, set, go. My wish for every other woman is that they get advocacy. I think that we all deserve support, and women really need support. A huge thing that I'm really thinking of right now is in my own world, like as a Black woman, and looking at the case of Breonna Taylor, and how her killers still have not been arrested, or they're still not, on trial, and things of that nature. It's kind of like the reason why Say Her Name was brought, to the forefront, is because we're always kind of in the background, and we don't have that, hooray of support that, our male counterparts do. But we experience it a lot of things and a lot of intersections, because we are Black and because we are women, So I definitely just hope that in the future, this support that, she is getting now is something that continues to happen for all women, because we all need it, whether it's in issues of sexual assault, or, the issues of different brutality. It's something that as a public, we all need to do more and do better for women. I think so. That's a big thing.
Thank you. That's very powerful.